Okay, yes. Good morning. My ARP today is about ASFA in the U.S. Virgin Islands. I came about this topic because as a small territory within the United States of the Virgin Islands, we are equivalent to like a rural area, our population. And so as such, we're slightly behind the curve in respect to mainstream or national policy, procedures, and practices as it pertains to child welfare. And as I said, this is one of the reasons why I applied for the fellowship with MPLD. The USVI, despite that, has been doing relatively well, but we have seen where our children languish in care for too long and not experience the benefit of a loving permanent home. As a result, I focused my action research project on aligning the USVI child welfare policies with the Adoption and Safe Families Act and developing a plan for training the staff and our court partners in an effort to improve permanency outcomes for our children in care. Little background, the U.S. Virgin Islands is an unincorporated territory of the United States of America. It is composed of 4 islands and about 50 small inlets and cays. For government purposes, the territory is divided into 2 districts. The largest island, St. Croix, is one district, where St. Thomas, St. John, and Water Island is considered collectively another district. The agency within the government of the Virgin Islands of the United States that is responsible for the territory's social and child welfare functions is the Department of Human Services. The Department of Human Services came into being in 1987 when it was replaced by the Department of Social Welfare following a government reorganization. Unfortunately, the most recent comprehensive policies and procedures manual that guide the work of child welfare workers have been in place since January 1st, 1982. This reference date not only predates the current organization, but it also has not been updated to include the plethora of pieces of federal legislation that have changed the guidance, the processes, and the goals, outcomes for children and families. With this background, the Department of Human Services, the Division of Children and Family Services, has received technical assistance from the Children's Bureau of the Administration on Children and Families, as well as from KC Family Programs to assess the system, processes, and permanency outcomes for our children in care. It has been noted that children in care remain in care in the Virgin Islands for far too many years, and the territory, unfortunately, does not prioritize achieving permanency in a timely manner. The territory's practice does not support prompt achievement of permanency. And as stated before, there has been no comprehensive updating of policies related to children in care to allow the territory to integrate the tenets of the Adoption and Safe Families Act. Okay, with this slide, as I began my process, I compiled and reviewed data about the length of stay in foster care in the Virgin Islands. I looked at 24 cases that achieved permanency since 2016 to 2020. The significance with that time frame is the U.S. Virgin Islands became a Title 4E jurisdiction in October of 2016. So I started to look at cases from the time that we became Title 4E to last year when I was doing this project. In looking at the graph, you can see that the months in care varied from 2 months to 216 months, with the average of months being in care is 43 months. 43 months in care is way too long by any means, and most definitely way too long according to ASFA guidelines. So because the territory has identified timely permanency as a challenge, technical assistance was requested through the Administration of Children and Family Services Capacity Building Center for States in 2019. During this time, focus groups were held with staff. The question that the focus group was attempting to address is, if we fail to improve our permanency outcome, what are the root causes? The responses are outlined in this diagram, and it was identified, it was identified that the primary root causes as identified by staff is policy, workforce, and practice. The secondary causes were identified as values, materials, and resources. During the discussion, staff identified elements for each root cause as outlined in this chart. Some elements identified under policy include the lack of clear set policies that is shared with everyone. Some of the staff members, and it's mostly the older employees who were reported that yes, they did have copies of the 1982 policies, but some of the newer workers admittedly did not have any copies of the policies. Clear timelines to permanency. Staff shared that they weren't clear as to what those timelines were, and they felt that there needed to be more accountability for the established policies. As it pertains to the workforce, the identified challenges were not enough staff. And even with the staff that they have, clearly defined roles and responsibilities, and not only among the staff, but with our court partners and the community. Because it's a small community, and unfortunately, as such, members of the court of the community, they feel that human services is responsible for everything. They're supposed to fix everything. They're supposed to take everything. And so the staff felt that it needed to be more clearly defined among everybody that we engage with. They also identified that we need to update the laws and the codes and provide training on those updates for the laws and the codes. Other notable elements in the areas of values, and they did identify and agree that we need to value permanency and denormalize long-term foster care, and that the current values do not align with practice and is not supported by policy. When I came into this position, one of the things that came to my mind when children were placed, and even when I was a social worker within the same department, is when it came to foster care, it was like a set it and forget it mentality. Once a child was successfully placed, they were successfully placed, and they tend to be in care unnecessarily long. Okay, the area of focus for my ARP is policy. And as stated, all organizations have policies and procedures, some written and some unwritten, and they exist to guide our daily decisions. The problem, however, with unwritten or outdated policies and procedures is that they are not subject to review and approval, and all accountability is lost. Employees are left to their own devices to determine what defines quality and what is important. While the absence of written policies and procedures empowers employees to fulfill their job responsibilities, they tend to take inconsistent approaches based on personal preference, which leads to inefficient practice in managing cases and ultimately a delay in permanency for children in foster care. But noting that updating policy takes time, focus will be on developing and implementing effective and efficient procedures and policies that do exist to help improve practice and achieve permanency in a timely manner. Because of the noted challenge, the focus of my research would be on policy, and more specifically, the need for updated policy that aligns with ASFA, or the Adoption and Safe Family Act, and then developing training for staff and ultimately the court system and the community in general. There are 5 key reasons why it's important to have policies and procedures, or updated policies and procedures. 1, they set expectations. 2, they keep management accountable. 3, they ensure compliance with the law. 4, they can help defend against employee claims or even the communities, because we do have claims from the community and even from the attorneys that we work with that, the department isn't doing what they're supposed to do. Show me your policy on this. How can we know that you're actually doing it and abiding by the law? And so having a clear defined policies would help with that. And then within policies, the employees would know who to turn to for help. Recently, the ABA Center on Children and the Law conducted a legal analysis in the fall of 2019 of the statutory provisions pertaining to child abuse and neglect related to legal proceedings, which is also known as dependency in some jurisdictions within the U.S. Virgin Islands Children's Code. The analysis showed that the most relevant statutory sections have not been updated since their enactment in the mid-1980s, and the statutes also do not address or meet the requirements of federal legislation passed since that time or otherwise reflect current approaches to child welfare. ASFA is important in terms of child welfare because it explicitly covers issues related to permanency. It highlights the connection between safety and permanency for achieving overall child well-being. It requires child protection agencies to provide more timely assessment and intervention services to children and families involved with child welfare, and it encourages concurrent planning by requiring that agencies make responsible efforts to find permanent families for children in foster care should reunification fail. As a result, and armed with all this information, I settled on my PICO. If child welfare staff, judicial partners, and other community stakeholders specifically involved in the process of achieving permanency for children in care receive education and training on ASFA, will it result in increased knowledge, attitude, intention, and behaviors for timely permanency of children in care? In order to do this, I completed an environmental scan. I utilized a permanency questionnaire. I completed a case review, and then I had a data analysis. With the environmental scan, I looked at all the policies that we did have. I looked at the feedback from the Casey Foundation's review. And with that, with all of that information, and there actually is updated information within human services. We had an out-of-home practice model, an in-home practice model, but for some reason they weren't implemented, or if they were implemented, I'm not sure. I wasn't able to identify why it was not being utilized. My permanency questionnaire was administered to 27 staff members, 15 on the island of the District of St. Croix, and 12 in the St. Thomas St. John district. The St. Thomas St. John district completed their questionnaires in person, but unfortunately, by the time it was time for me to travel to the District of St. Croix to work with them with their questionnaire, COVID hit and travel was suspended, and I could not, travel to St. Croix to administer the questionnaire. So those individuals completed the questionnaires via email. With the case review, 12 cases were randomly selected per district. And this is the cases where permanency was achieved within the time frame mentioned. The case reviews were conducted by myself, and because of my inability to travel, I utilized the district manager in the District of St. Croix. The focus on most of the questions were on concurrent planning, and then after I compiled all of this information, I did my data analysis. With the environmental scan, the data showed that although there has been some work previously to bring the USVI in compliance with federal statutes, there has not been a comprehensive effort towards updating the statutes or policies. The case review done by Casey Foundation, or Casey Family Programs, identified the following key recommendations: that the USVI needed to conduct a comprehensive policy analysis and rewrite, conduct training and coaching for child welfare agency and staff partners, conduct permanency values training and coaching to better prepare child welfare staff and partners, and to collaborate with courts to remove barriers related to placement decisions. The questionnaire, this slide represents the questionnaire, my permanency questionnaire. The questionnaire was designed to assess 3 areas: ASFA knowledge, permanency knowledge, and time frame knowledge. When it came to ASFA knowledge, all staff were familiar with ASFA and understood that it was applicable to child welfare in the USVI. However, none of the staff members was able to list all 5 principles. In terms of the permanency knowledge, it showed that all staff were familiar with permanency options, and that there's differences utilized when the case involves a younger child versus an older child, but only 19% of the staff was able to list the steps from the time a child comes into care until permanency is achieved. When it came to the time frame, all staff was knowledgeable on the maximum time frames and federal and local statutes. However, the questionnaire also revealed that knowledge base was inconsistent. Therefore, practice was inconsistent. Some of the responses indicated that staff researched the answers prior to completing the questionnaire, and confirmation of cultural issues with buy-in into ASFA when it came to older children. Correction, let me back up. The questionnaire revealed that the knowledge base was inconsistent, therefore our practice was inconsistent, and some of the responses indicated that the staff researched the answers prior to completing the questionnaire. It also revealed or confirmed cultural issues with buy-in to ASFA, which indicates that older children are more difficult to place. In an effort not to reinvent the wheel, and in my research of other states, I came across the New Jersey's case practice model and pulled some information from it to help design my case review. I specifically looked at concurrent planning and learned about practices in New Jersey that can be beneficial to explore for this project during our coaching calls. You might also wonder why New Jersey as opposed to any other state. In addition to talking about the issues in the territory during my coaching calls, in December of 2019, myself and my mentor, coincidentally, and some of my other staff partners, we were able to participate in a site visit of 3 jurisdictions, one of which New Jersey was one of the sites that we looked at. And in speaking to the individuals about some of the challenges we had in the USVI, it was found that they overcame some of the same challenges. So I also thought it prudent to utilize their case practice model as a sample for my project. Using their model, I created this case review checklist. The checklist focused on concurrent planning, timeframes, and it was utilized to review the extent to which there was consistency in practices, specifically regarding the steps that contribute to timely permanency. Initially, the case reviews were to be conducted by me, but unfortunately, as previously stated, due to COVID restrictions and my inability to travel to St. Croix, the district manager completed the reviews for St. Croix. 3 areas from the checklist that will be highlighted are placement decisions, case conferences, and court proceedings. Results when it comes to placement decisions. It was found that there were 3 questions that looked at placement decisions throughout the life of the case. And it was found that most staff properly assessed the relative and foster placement as the first placement and also as the best placement. Some of the staff assessed long-term commitment of the placement in the event reunification is not viable, but approximately only half of the staff made ongoing efforts to identify an appropriate permanent placement if a placement was not viable. However, there were some inconsistencies in staff assessing placement for long-term commitment. When looking at case conferences, it was found that when it came to 5-month reviews and 10-month reviews, they were not happening like they should. 70% of the cases showed that they did not do a case review at the 5-month mark, and 66% showed that a case review did not occur at the 10-month period. So that's an area of improvement that we need to look at when developing the training. Court proceedings. The questions for court proceedings focused on whether or not permanency hearings were being held at least every 12 months, once every 12 months. And the results showed that this did not happen for 70% of the cases reviewed. I also looked at whether or not parental rights were terminated for both mother and father. And in 87% of the cases, parental rights were not terminated for both mother and father. However, it must be noted that within the last 10 years, the USVI strengthened the TPR laws that has now allowed us to process more terminations needed to provide children with permanency. Prior to this, one of the biggest hiccups we had locally in terms of permanency was that PPR law that needed to be updated. So once we got that in place approximately 10 years ago, the cases started to move, but still not at the rate that they could have, should have. So this is also an ongoing area of need to develop, and where coordination, collaboration with the courts and the attorneys on these cases would come in. Plan next steps. So what does this all mean? What are my next steps, or what are the USVI's next steps? We already began working on updating our statute. Work groups comprised of attorneys, social workers, and other stakeholders have begun to work on updating our children's code. Concurrently, however, I will utilize the data to develop a training outline for staff. I also intend to create a pilot module, um, which would be entitled ASFA 101. This was supposed to be done throughout the life of this project. However, unfortunately, the COVID restrictions and some other challenges we were experiencing here locally prevented me from actually piloting the module. And within creating the module, I would develop a feedback process with a pre and post test and develop a phased training schedule. So this shows the proposed um, training schedule that I came up with. And as you can see, module one includes ASFA basics, placement decisions, full disclosure, and concurrent planning. Like I said, it was the intent to at least start this this one module, but I was limited by the restrictions with our current situation with the pandemic. But moving forward, it's not totally dead in the water. It will be done sooner rather than later. It just could not be completed at the time of this presentation. Module two would involve case preparation, types of hearings, court reports, testimony, and termination process. Module three would include training on identity and lifebook work. Currently, we do not do that. We do know it's an area of improvement. Some staff have some knowledge of it, but the large majority did not. So that's why it's included in module three under best case practices. We'll also look at case plans, visitation, meeting children's need, and meeting the needs of the parent. And then the final module would be a supervisory module about case conferences and the 30, 90, 5 month, 30-day review, 90-day review, 5 month review, and 10-month review. Challenges to this project. Infrastructure. Here in the USVI, we have been struggling with staffing, and with the limited staff that we have, the workload is heavy. The challenges with staffing is, as most everyone would know, we had two Category 5 hurricanes in 2017, and as a result of that, the territory on a whole, not just the child welfare system, lost a lot of individuals due to them relocating to the mainland and not wanting to stick it out here in the island. And that the child welfare system was not safe from that. We lost some staff because of that, but with the limited staff that we have, the caseload or the workload is not balanced. We are currently working to try to remedy that, but then once we were starting to get ahead, we had the pandemic. And so that posed some additional challenges for the government of the Virgin Islands in terms of bringing on additional staff. Another challenge is technology. Unfortunately, the equipment and devices that we have available to staff right now is outdated. We are in the process, we have been for quite some time in the process of getting updated devices. But once again, we got kicked in the gut with a pandemic because now everybody needs computers, everybody needs laptops, everybody needs internet access. But I'm happy to announce that our new devices are on order and we should have them shortly. The court process. The challenge when it comes to the court, the challenges that we are experiencing is, as previously shown in the slide, they're not necessarily Abiding by the time frame set by ASFA, that's a work in progress. We do have some collaborative work going on between the court, our CIP coordinator, and the Capacity Building Center for Courts in terms of providing the training to the courts and the attorneys on our child welfare cases. Other challenges with the courts is just the lack of enough information and understanding about not only ASFA but Title 4E on a whole. So those are also areas that are concurrently being addressed between DCFS and through our court improvement coordinator in terms of providing trainings for the courts in those two areas. But it has been proven to be a challenge for us when we have to go to court without them having that necessary information to determine what is in the best interest of the children. Additional challenges is lack of resources. Here in the territory, we have limited services for families. We can provide counseling. However, when it comes to anything beyond that, unfortunately, like we have some families where mental health issues are a problem, not only for the parents, but in some instances for the children. And locally, we only have one psychiatrist in the St. Thomas St. John district and one in the St. Croix district, and none of them are child psychiatrists or specialize in issues concerning children. Additional services that we lack, that we're trying to develop for our families, is our housing situation since the storms, the hurricanes. Our housing, available housing is limited. Um, and just general assistance for our families to help foster reunification. We're trying, like I said, we're trying to rebuild our service array right now, but for right now, it's limited since the storms. And then we have a need for more resource families. For the amount of children we have in care right now, everyone has a home, but unfortunately, if someone else is to come into care, then um, we have a problem. So we're working right now with um, Adapt US Kids to update our foster parent training curriculum. And once we're supposed to have the trainer event in the next couple of weeks, and once we get all the staff trained and ready to provide the training, then we do plan a campaign to kick off in May, Foster Care Month, to try to educate and recruit additional resource families. Another challenge is cultural beliefs. Believe it or not, we have a lot of people here in my interacting with entities, individuals, organizations. I was surprised to find out that there are persons here who didn't think we have um, foster care here, who don't believe that parental rights should be terminated. We should just take care of our own instead of taking children from their homes. And so that has added an extra layer sometimes in being able to provide for the families. And then, of course, the ever present COVID 19 continues to be a challenge, I know, for everybody, but also for us here in the USVI. Potential impact of the action of my action research project. It is my hope that after all is said and done, and we start doing the trainings necessary for staff will develop a deeper understanding of the importance of concurrent planning and as for timeframes and all ASFA has to offer. I also hope that we can have more of an alignment and collaboration with the judicial staff or the judicial partners in order to improve permanency outcomes for our children here in care. Consistency in case practice. I do not need one district doing one thing, another district doing another thing, one worker doing yet still a third thing, and another worker doing a fourth thing. So hopefully, once all of the training is completed, there will be more consistency in case practice across the territory, which would then increase accountability for the workers, for our court partners, and just for our community and children in general. MPLD impact. Well, it has been a journey. It provided me an opportunity to collaborate with other fellows. Go Team Elevation. It increased my awareness and knowledge of other jurisdictions' challenges, and I realized that we here in the Virgin Islands are not alone. At one point, I thought, being last was, kind of sucky, but after hearing everybody, and even throughout the process, I realized USVI, we have our challenges, but we're not alone. Every jurisdiction has their challenges as well. So we have a saying here, uniquely VI, and although some things are uniquely VI, this is necessarily isn't one of them. I am also, it has allowed me to be more comfortable networking and collaborating with who I need to reach out to get things done for our children in care. It has also taught me to be less transactional and more transformational. I have seen the fruits of that change with my staff. And so MPLD has been a great source in terms of that. And then the coaching calls provided an opportunity for me to process and grow from my challenges and cry at times. And, Arlene and Sherilyn could tell you at least on 2, 3 occasions, like, take me out, I can't do this anymore. But they stuck with me, and here I am. And so I thank them very much for that. And so that's all, folks. And I am open to any questions that anybody may have. Oh, before I do that, I need to thank my mentor, Miss Carla Benjamin. She is also my immediate supervisor. She's also the assistant commissioner and has oversight of all the children's program here at Human Services. And she has been phenomenal. We have been through it. She has been available to me any hour of the night, day, weekend, holidays. And I can't go without thanking her immensely for all of her support, her knowledge, and her guidance. So thank you, Ms. Benjamin.